Hey, how's it going, everyone? Greg here with RC Driver, and it is the long-awaited part 2 of the Traxxas Slash drag car project, and I have to apologize for the long wait. I didn't know that that video, the part number 1 video, was going to be so popular. At the time I'm filming this video right now, it was like at 55,000 views, and I'd like to thank everybody that watched that. And I noticed a lot of subscribers went up during that time the video was up, and I'd like to thank all of you guys for subscribing. If you haven't done so, please click that subscribe button so you can see more of this project. But anyway, a comedy of errors kind of happened. That was the reason for the delay. I actually shot some of this video already for the part 2 of this video, and the battery in the mic died, and so I had to start again, and so that caused a bit of delay. I was still searching for some parts. That caused a bit of delay, and then just life in general, a lot of RC stuff happening in the background was going on, and that caused a part of the delay. So lots of busy stuff. I really apologize, but let's get to this project now because it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited to see all you guys are really interested in this. So I've done a little bit of work here. As you can see, I've got this chassis over here. I've got the new chassis. I've got some transmission stuff. So I've already gone ahead and I started disassembling that donor chassis that you saw. And this is kind of what's left. It's kind of sad and looks a little bit mangled. But you know what? I mean, there's only a few parts I took off this thing. I think I'm actually going to save this and, you know, rebuild it at some point in time. It'll be a fun project. It was great before. It was a lot of fun. But basically, I took the transmission out, bulkhead. I got some other parts back here behind me. And, of course, this stuff is going to go on the car. But I do have a lot to talk to you guys about. This is going to be part 2. There is going to be a part 3 and then a part 4. But trust me, this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's head over to the workbench, get to work. Okay, it's some workbench time. Probably one of my favorite parts of RC is just building stuff here at the workbench. Kind of calming and relaxing, and it's really cool what the results are when you are done. So I think out of all this mess right here, I think I'm really just going to start off with the steering on this machine. And right here I have the new front plate that comes with the chassis kit, the LCG chassis kit that I showed you in part 1. And over here I have a hot racing steering system. And this steering system right here is all aluminum. Comes with ball bearing supports. It's got a spring-loaded servo saver setup. And over here I have a Savox servo metal steering arm from Racer's Edge. I believe this is an STRC turnbuckle. Again, this donor truck was built for racing, so that's what a lot of these parts are that you see right here. And it all should really just fit right back together. I'm going to use a lot of the hardware that you know, came off the truck, the donor truck. And right here, now I've just got to slip on these posts. What's really nice is these came with ball bearings. I believe it came with ball bearings. Maybe I upgraded that. But ball bearings just really nice to have in steering, so everything works nice and smooth, not a lot of slop. And I would expect on a drag car you don't want sloppy steering, so the car doesn't wander around as you're running down the strip. So as you can see, it already just slid right on those posts there. And now I'm just going to take a minute. I'm going to throw all the hardware on, and we'll move on to the next step. So here it is, the steering tray all assembled. Got the servo in there. Actually had to go back and mount it in the lower position. It actually says that in the instructions if you're using an alternate servo arm on there, which I am. I have that Racer's Edge arm on there. But when I did that, because of the shape of the servo, I had to go and trim the edge of the plate just a little bit. So you know, you might want to watch out for that when you're building your car. If you have an optional servo in there, just check for fitment on that. You know, if you mount the servo too high with an aftermarket arm, it might hit the chassis. All right, so now with that together, all I'm going to do here now is I'm going to feed this wire up into the chassis. It's got this nice little slot in the LCG chassis to run your wire through. So let me just take care of that. And now I could go and bolt this bottom plate on. So that goes right there, and then they give you the hardware to go and screw this down. So I'm just going to go and grab my Makita driver, make nice easy work of these screws. It's just 2 screws that hold on the front plate. Pretty simple setup. Just like that. It's already all done. That looks pretty cool. So now I'm going to go and install the Nerf Wings. It comes with Nerf Wings. Actually, it comes with Nerf Wings and the battery strap setup. So we've got this mount here. Actually, let me go and install that first. So this goes in the back of the chassis here. And let me just flip this over. It slides right in, and then of course they give you the screws to install that as well. Flathead screws. So You just go and screw this in place. So that mounts in there now. And actually, to hold the front in, I'm going to need a 5.5 millimeter nut driver here to install this little post that they give you. Right, so I got my post in there. Now I could use the battery strap. I'll just throw it in here for now so you guys can see what it looks like. They give you a little body clip for that, of course. Slide that in. So now I've got the battery strap all set up. And they actually give you these foam blocks as well. So you've got a small foam block, large foam block. So depending on the type of battery that you put in this, you know, you could go, if you have a long pack, of course you don't use any spacers. Got a shorter pack, you could put it in. You could adjust actually the bias of the weight of the battery. So, you know, if you want the weight farther forward, you put the spacers in the back. If you want more weight to the back wheels, of course you put the spacers in the front. So I'm going to leave those out for now until I get the battery situation all figured out. And now I can move on to these Nerf Wings that they give you. And these just slide in on the side. And then I need some hardware actually to install them. You're supposed to reuse your hardware from your original Slash chassis. Obviously, I was using an aftermarket Slash chassis. So I got to find some screws. I've got one of these Dynamite stainless steel variety pack screw kits here. So I'm just going to dig in, find some screws that work, and secure these in place. All right, so the chassis is coming together. Got the Nerf Wings on there. You know, maybe they'll help support the body a little bit, prevent it from fluttering, but I don't know. There might still be some gap. We'll find out when we put the body on. Got the battery strap in there, and of course got the front steering plate on. Now I guess it's just time to start working on the bulkhead, and that's going to take a little bit of customization because, as I mentioned in episode number 1, part 1, I'm going to go and use JADO arms on the front of it. And so this is the Slash bulkhead. These are JADO arms, and they don't match up. I can't just slide these in place. I need to do a little bit of modification. And from what I've seen in the comment section of part 1, some people said that they use the stock Slash front arms. So if you want to go and try that, by all means do so. But as I mentioned, I wanted to try and replicate that Traxxas project I saw on their website, and this is what they used. So what I'm going to do here is I'm simply going to go and cut a little bit off the bulkhead here on the back side. I'm going to take some material off. I'm going to use a Dremel tool, which is somewhere in this mess, and I'm just going to use a cutting disc and cut that off. While I have the cutting disc out, I'm also going to cut off this sway bar link mount right here because that's where Traxxas mounted their shock. And I'm going to have to drill a hole there as well. Now, I do want to go and actually put sway bars on this machine. I have a sway bar set from it. I believe it's from Hot Racing. That's one of the parts I'm trying to locate, and I haven't found it yet, but that will come in part 3. So right now, let me just focus on these arms, and let's get these set up. All right, so the bulkhead has been cut down the size, and I used the Dremel tool to do it. If you don't have a Dremel tool, you could use a file. It'll take a little bit longer, but you can do the same job with a file. And I also went ahead, I cut those ball studs off of the arm, as I mentioned, and used an X-Acto knife just to clean up the edge so there wouldn't be any rough spots on there. So now I just really need to go ahead and start assembling the front end. I'm going to reuse the suspension pins that I pulled off of that donor truck. I believe these might be Anza, but you could get nice aftermarket pins like this from Proline and STRC. You know, you could go and reuse the stock pin as well, but I like these because they have a captured nut on the other end of them. So I'll just slide these in. Where's my other arm? Here's my other arm here. And I'll go ahead and install the retaining nuts on the back side of these. Tighten those down. They have little locking nuts on there, so it really keeps everything together. Don't have to worry about anything falling apart. I'll tighten those up in a minute. So there's the front end. There's the bulkhead all set up. Now I got to put my shock tower back on. All right, so I'm going to put this on, and then I'm going to get everything tightened up before I move any farther. So the front end is starting to take shape here. Got my JADO arms on the front bulkhead. Everything worked out just fine with cutting it down. While my Dremel was out, I actually went and cut down the boss of the arm here just a little bit so the suspension pin would fit in there all the way. It was a little bit longer, I guess, for the JADO pin, obviously. So to use the pins that I had, that's what I did there. And then over here, I did go and cut off the little sway bar ball end and then drilled a hole basically right dead center of where that ball was, and that's where my new shock mount is going to be. And then back here, I've got the RPM front body mount from a Slash. What's really nice about this is they give you these posts here. These are long posts, so I could go and jack the front body up so it looks like a gas car if I want to, or drop it back down, depending on how I want the look. But anyway, that's coming together. Now I just got to throw it on the front of the chassis. Pretty simple, just kind of got to slide it in there, pop it in place, and now I got to put the screws in. All right, and so here's my top screws. All right, let me just throw all these in and we can start moving on even farther with this project. Turning out to be a lot of fun, and I really haven't done much drag car racing at all in my career, so I'm really excited to go out and just rip up and down the street with this thing and see what type of speeds I can get out of it. It's going to be an absolute blast. I could see why people love this type of build. All right, there we go. The front end is secured, and now I guess I could go and probably put the caster blocks on. I think that's a good step to go with next. So I have the aluminum caster blocks here. I told you guys I was going to throw in the aluminum caster blocks. And what's really nice about this set, obviously it's aluminum, it's anodized blue. This particular set, you get it anodized in a bunch of different colors. There's red and green, I think even pink now. But what's nice about them is they do come with new screw pins. So you could go and use these to put everything together. So I'm going to throw the left side on here and just slide the pin in through the back, or actually through the front side, because there's a little ridge on there. And just slide it in, and actually look at that, there is another issue. All right, so the original pin for a Traxxas Slash front caster block is rather on the small side. This is it. Let's see if I get that focused in for you guys. So you can see there's the smaller pin and the larger pin. Obviously, the JATO uses a larger pin, so what I'm going to have to do here is drill this out to fit this larger pin, because I want to use the larger pin. All right, time to do some more machine work. All right, and I'm back. I ran out to my garage. I have a drill press in my garage, so I threw the caster blocks in there with the appropriate size drill bit for this pin. Now, I should also mention this is the rear outer pin, okay? The front pins obviously didn't work, as I mentioned, because of the size hole in the JATO arm. So I'm using the outer rear pin that I scavenged off that truck as the new front pin. All right, so that fits in there nice now. So now I could go and install these caster blocks finally. Let me just slide these in, nice and easy. All right, and I'll add the locking nuts to that later. Now I'm gonna go and install the front aluminum steering blocks, and I don't think there's gonna be a problem with these. These are also nice. They come with ball bearings, so if for some reason you had a kit without ball bearings or needed new ball bearings, this should work out really well for you. So these are nicely machined. Let me grab the ball bearings out of here. Nice seal ball bearings as well. Now I've recommended these in a couple of videos that I've done in the past. And I get a couple people in those videos saying, those are no good, you know, you don't know what you're talking about. And I mean, I've been using these for years. When we first started Slash racing, these particular units were the ones that were allowed by Traxxas as the few aftermarket parts you could put on a Slash. So, you know, if these were the parts that were allowed to be used, I would have to assume they're pretty good. Since I've never broken one myself in racing, I'd have to assume they're pretty good. So as far as people saying I don't know what I'm talking about, well, you know, everybody's got their own personal opinion on what works the best. Some people have mentioned RPM and stuff. Yeah, RPM makes great stuff. But you know, and if that's what you like, go for it. But again, I've had great success with these. So I'm not going to turn these things down. Now I do need my front stub axles. Here they are in this particular kit. Now these I believe were ANZA as well. So you know, the front stub axles that you have in your particular kit, those are going to work really well. I'm just going to pop this stuff off and I'm going to reuse these. But you guys get the idea of what's necessary here. And this particular kit didn't even have seal ball bearings, so this works out really well with these new bearings. With the new spindles there, I'm going to do here, I'll throw the stub axle in. Just to hold the stub axle in, here's a little tip. You can go and throw everything back together. I'm actually just going to throw the nut on. Obviously, we're not going to install the wheels right now. So now these could go in place using the new pins that came with the new caster block. So I'll just slide these in. And if you want, you can go and add some Loctite to the threads just to ensure that that doesn't back out while you're running. That could be a catastrophe if that happens. All right, so those are in. That looks really cool. What do you guys think of that? Nice blue action going on everywhere here. All right, now I have to install the upper tie rods, obviously. And I did get new tie rods, as I mentioned in video number 1, and I have to see which ones they are because they're all over the place here. All right, so these are the new tie rods for the front. I'm gonna go and rip these apart. Let's see here. We've got 5538, 5539, and I think there's even instructions on which ones go where on the front of a Jado, so hopefully I could use that to see which ones go where here. Okay, so after messing around with it, I think I gotta go and use the longer link up top. I believe that's what it was for, the top link, and I'm gonna use the shorter link on the bottom for the steering turnbuckles. And I'm probably gonna have to go do some adjusting anyway, but this should all work out. All right, let me just bolt these things on and I'll show you guys how it looks when it's done. All right, so I was fiddling around and I kind of jumped ahead and went and mounted the tie rods. I have the shorter tie rod up top, I have the longer tie rod on the bottom here, and I still need to make some fine-tuning adjustments once I get the tires on. There's gonna be a lot of camber on here if I just went and ran it like this. So that tuning will happen once I do get the tires on. And right now it's really probably down to mounting the shocks up. And I actually already have some shocks with some blue caps on it. I did go and tell you guys I was going to put some blue caps on. I had some blue caps, but I found a pair of shocks in my collection that already had them. So that's going to work out really well. But these are set up for off-road. They're a Slash shock, and of course they have a long stroke to it for the long travel. And on a non-road car, such as a drag car, you don't need that. So actually I went digging through some of my stuff and I found some spacers. Now there's a number of different ways to limit the travel of a shock. You could go and use fuel tubing, you could use spacers. I've seen people use a piston, an extra piston inside the body to limit the down travel of the shock. I prefer just to use a plastic limiting spacer such as this one right here. This particular one that I found, I believe is 6 millimeters. 6 millimeter spacer. So that's what I'm going to start off with. And this is really down to another testing and tuning thing. You want to get the ride height that's right for your particular vehicle. You know, if maybe you're not building a drag slash by watching this video, maybe you're building something else. So it's really kind of messing around and trying things out. And yeah, you'll go through some shock oil, but you know, it's fun to tune as well. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pull these shocks apart. And I'm going to install these spacers that I just showed you. So I'll pull the shock cap back off, dump the oil out, pull the bottom off the shock shaft, unscrew that, and make sure you use like a shock shaft plier or a protective plier so you don't mar the shock shaft, which will wreck your O-rings. I'll pull the shaft out of the body, put my limiting spacers in, throw it back together, and when I do so, I'm going to use an 80 weight shock oil. Asked my buddy Tim Smith what weight oil to start off with, and he suggested an 80 weight oil. Kind of, you know, what on-road cars use are a heavyweight oil. So I'll put the oil in, I'll bleed the shock, put the bladder in, and put the aluminum cap back on, throw it all back together, and just mount it back on the car like I normally would. I'm going to use a longer screw, obviously, so I'm going to start doing all that, and I'll show you what it looks like when it's done in just a second. Well, that was a bit of work, but I've got the shocks all together and mounted up on the front of this machine. You know, I have it mounted to the Jado arms now. I did have to go and use a little spacer in there just so the shock wasn't moving around. Obviously, there's a big gap in there, so find what you have in your collection of parts, but just didn't want that thing flopping around. Now that we've got the shocks on there, you know, they feel pretty good and probably need a little bit firmer of a spring in there, but we'll see how it goes. Again, testing and tuning as we go. Next up, let's mount the front bumper on this thing. And I noticed on the Traxxas website, the project I'm replicating from there, that they go and cut the front bumper up and basically get rid of the bull bar up on the top of the bumper. So that's basically what I'm going to do. As I mentioned, I have a sway bar kit for it. I think the sway bar kit actually mounts to the front bumper. It's that Hot Racing sway bar kit. I don't remember. I got to find it still. I will find it. But for now, let's just get going with this thing. And I think this is actually going to be pretty easy. What I'm going to do, I'm going to take some Lexan scissors, and I'm just going to cut off this top part of the front bumper. Lexan scissors are pretty tough. I'm just going to go and cut along the line here. It's going to take me a little bit, but I'm going to do it. And when I'm done, I'm probably just going to go run some sandpaper across the top just to clean up the edge a bit. But, all right, let me go and cut this thing up. I'll show you guys what it looks like when it's done. Well, that was a little tougher than I thought it was going to be, but I do have the bumper all done. It came out pretty good. Actually, what I went and did is I took my X-Acto knife and I scored this edge just a little bit on both sides, and that helped me cut through it with the scissors a little bit better, and I started just hacking off the bumper as I went, but it came out to a pretty clean edge. Looks pretty good. Just got to throw it on the front of this machine now. And there we have it. Most of the front end is together, and this is actually where I'm going to leave you guys. This video is starting to run pretty long. It's going to take me a while to edit it, and I don't want you guys to fall asleep while watching it. So I'm going to cut it off here. In part 3, we're going to start talking about the rear section of the vehicle. I'll get into the differential and the shorter arms and stuff, and then we'll actually get to bolting on the wheels as well in that video. But again, I want you guys to be able to possibly replicate this project too. If you're really interested in it, and I think a lot of people are, it's going to be a really fun build, and I hope you guys enjoy it when you do it as well. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, please do so. Hit the notifications bell as well. Throw the video a like. Any more questions or comments, please throw it in the section below. Love reading those. Love seeing what you guys come up with as well as far as ideas. And of course, when you have some extra time, head over to rcdriver.com.